Prologue. The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor just like my heart. You really thought I'd marry you? David's voice cut through the silence of his penthouse office. A black girl from the projects who clawed her way up? My investors would never take me seriously with you as my wife. I stood there in my wedding dress, the one I'd bought with my first million, watching the man I'd loved for 3 years laugh with his real fiancée, a blonde socialite whose daddy owned half of Manhattan. But David, we're supposed to get married tomorrow. My voice sounded small, broken, nothing like the CEO who commanded boardrooms across the country. Tomorrow, yes, to someone who actually belongs in my world. He didn't even look at me as he signed papers. Thanks for the free business advice, though. Your marketing strategies helped me close the Peterson deal. The betrayal hit harder than his words. Everything. Every late night working on his campaigns. Every strategy I'd shared. Every vulnerable moment. All calculated. All lies. Aria, darling. His fiancée purred. You can see yourself out, can't you? We have a real wedding to plan. I walked out of that office in my wedding dress, mascara streaming down my dark cheeks, past his employees who wouldn't meet my eyes. They all knew. Everyone knew except me. Standing on Fifth Avenue at midnight, still in white silk and broken dreams, I made a vow that would define the next 5 years of my life. Never again. Never would I let love make me weak. Never would I trust a man with my heart. Never would I be anyone's fool. But sometimes the universe has other plans. Sometimes it sends you exactly what you swore you'd never want, wrapped in the most unexpected package. Sometimes it sends you a single dad who changes everything. Welcome to Billionaire Soulful Stories, where love conquers all odds. I'm your host, and today we're diving into Aria's journey from heartbreak to healing. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever made a promise to yourself that love later broke? Let's begin this emotional ride together. Chapter 1. The Setup. 5 years later, I ruled from the 42nd floor of Thompson Cosmetics Tower, my empire built on the ashes of that humiliation. My reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows showed what I'd become. Sharp blazer, perfect makeup, walls higher than my Louboutin heels. Miss Thompson, the board is questioning your unconventional hiring choices again. My assistant Jennifer's voice carried disapproval. I turned from the window, my expression colder than December in New York. What exactly are they questioning, Jennifer? Well, hiring a male nanny seems what, progressive? Threatening to their fragile masculinity? I walked to my desk, each step deliberate. I need someone to manage my household, travel with me, handle my schedule. Gender is irrelevant. But that wasn't entirely true. I'd specifically requested a male nanny because I knew it would infuriate the old boys club that made up my board. Men who constantly reminded me that I was an anomaly in their world. A black woman who dared to build an empire worth $3 billion. The intercom buzzed. Miss Thompson, your 3 o'clock is here. Send him in. The door opened and my breath caught in my throat. He was magnificent, tall, with rich dark skin that seemed to glow under the office lights. His eyes held intelligence and something deeper, a sadness I recognized. But it was his smile that stopped my heart. Warm, genuine, the kind that reached his eyes and made you believe in goodness again. Miss Thompson, I'm Elijah Cross. His voice was smooth honey over gravel. Thank you for seeing me. Professional, stay professional. Please sit. I gestured to the leather chair across from my desk, noting how he moved with quiet confidence. Your resume is impressive, Mr. Cross. Harvard education degree, 5 years teaching, excellent references. Thank you. He settled into the chair, and I caught a subtle cologne that made my pulse quicken. I'm passionate about education and organization, helping successful people maintain balance in their lives. Balance. I almost laughed. I hadn't had balance since David's betrayal. Work consumed everything because work was safe. Work didn't lie or cheat or abandon you for someone else. Tell me, Mr. Cross, why are you interested in this particular position? Most men wouldn't consider being a Nanny. Something flickered in his eyes. I understand the unique challenges of being different in a professional world. Sometimes the best person for a job doesn't fit the traditional mold. Smart answer. And you're comfortable with extensive travel? Long hours? My schedule is demanding. Absolutely. I'm very adaptable. Family commitments? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm a single father. My son Lucas is 6. He'd need to come with us, but he's well behaved and won't interfere with business. A single father. Something in his voice when he mentioned his son made my chest tighten. The love there was unmistakable, protective and fierce. How do you manage work and parenting alone? The question slipped out before I could stop it. You do what you have to do for the people you love. His eyes met mine and I saw steel beneath the warmth. Family comes first. Always. Family. The word sent an unexpected pang through me. I'd built my empire alone, trusted no one, needed no one. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I wondered what it would feel like to have someone put me first. The salary is generous, I said, sliding the contract across my desk. 6 figures, full benefits, travel expenses. In return, I expect complete loyalty and discretion. He scanned the papers and I found myself studying his profile. Strong jaw, full lips that looked soft despite his serious expression. Wedding ring tan line on his finger, mostly faded but still visible if you knew what to look for. This seems very fair, he said finally. When would you need me to start? Tomorrow. I have a business trip to Los Angeles next week. You and your son would accompany me. That fast? For just a moment, something crossed his face. Uncertainty? Regret? Is that a problem, Mr. Cross? No, ma'am. Tomorrow it is. He signed the contract with steady hands, and when our fingers brushed as he handed it back, electricity shot up my arm. Our eyes locked, and the air between us seemed to thicken. Dangerous. This was dangerous. Jennifer will provide you with all the details, I said, standing abruptly. Welcome to Thompson Cosmetics, Mr. Cross. Thank you, Miss Thompson. You won't regret this. But as I watched him leave, noting the confident set of his shoulders and the way he'd looked at me like he could see straight through my walls, I wondered if I already did. That evening I called my best friend Zoe from my penthouse overlooking Central Park. You hired a male nanny? Zoe's laugh echoed through my marble kitchen. Girl, you're playing with fire. It's purely professional, I lied, pouring myself a glass of wine. He's qualified, available, and it'll drive the board crazy. Uh-huh. And what does he look like? I paused, remembering those warm brown eyes. That's irrelevant. That good, huh? Zoe's voice turned serious. Aria, honey, when's the last time you let anyone close? And I mean really close, not just business associates and employees. I don't need anyone close. I have everything I want. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you have everything except what matters most. Love, Aria. A real connection. Love is weakness, I said automatically, the words I'd repeated like a mantra for 5 years. No, baby. Fear is weakness, and you've been afraid for too long. After we hung up, I stood at my windows looking out at the glittering city I'd conquered. Zoe was wrong. I wasn't afraid. I was smart, protected, safe. But as I thought about Elijah Cross and the way he'd looked at me, I felt the first crack in the walls I'd built around my heart, and that terrified me more than any hostile takeover ever could. The next morning, he arrived at my penthouse at exactly 7 a.m., holding the hand of the most beautiful little boy I'd ever seen. Lucas had his father's warm brown eyes but carried himself with a careful stillness that spoke of a child who'd learned to observe the world, rather than trust it completely. Good morning, Miss Thompson, Elijah said. This is Lucas. The boy looked up at me with serious eyes. Daddy says you're very important and very smart. Something in my chest melted. Your daddy is right about the smart part. What do you think is the important part? Lucas studied me with the intensity of someone much older. "I think you're sad under the circumstances." The observation hit like a physical blow, out of the mouths of babes. "Lucas has a gift for reading people," Elijah said quietly, his eyes meeting mine with understanding that made my breath catch. "Well then," I managed, kneeling to Lucas's level, "we'll have to make sure there's less sadness and more happiness, won't we?" Lucas smiled then, transforming his serious little face into something radiant. "I'd like that. Can I help?" As I looked into this child's hopeful eyes, with his father's protective presence beside him, I felt something shift inside me, something I'd kept locked away for 5 long years. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to let someone help. But I had no idea that the man I'd just invited into my life was about to turn everything upside down in ways I never could have imagined. Chapter 2. The Development. 3 weeks into our arrangement, Elijah Cross had quietly revolutionized my life. My penthouse, once a cold showcase of success, now had Lucas's artwork stuck to the refrigerator with colorful magnets. His father's presence was everywhere too, coffee made just the way I liked it each morning, my schedule organized with military precision, and meals that actually nourished instead of sustained. "Miss Aria, look!" Lucas burst into my home office, holding up a drawing of 3 stick figures. "It's you, me, and Daddy at the park yesterday." My heart clenched. In the drawing, we looked like a family. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I accepted the paper with hands that trembled slightly. "Should we put it on the refrigerator with the others?" "Yes. Daddy says refrigerator art means you're home." Home. The word echoed strangely in my chest. "Lucas," Elijah's voice carried from the doorway. "What have I told you about interrupting Miss Thompson when she's working?" "It's fine," I said quickly, standing. "I was just reviewing the Peterson proposal anyway." Elijah stepped into my office, and my pulse quickened as it did every time he entered a room. Today he wore dark jeans and a fitted gray sweater that highlighted every line of his athletic build. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms that made my mouth go dry. "How's the Peterson deal looking?" he asked, moving to stand behind my chair. I caught his scent, clean soap and something uniquely masculine that made my head spin. "Complicated. They're questioning our expansion into international markets." I pulled up the spreadsheet, hyper-aware of his proximity. "The numbers are solid, but they're concerned about cultural sensitivity in our marketing." "May I?" He gestured toward my laptop. I nodded, and he leaned over my shoulder to read. His breath whispered against my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "Focus, Aria. Focus. Here's the issue," he said softly, his finger pointing to the screen. "You're approaching this like a hostile takeover instead of a partnership. Peterson Industries values relationship building. Show them how your expansion benefits their existing client base." I turned to look at him, surprised by his insight. "That's actually brilliant. How did you—" Our faces were inches apart. I could see gold flecks in his brown eyes, the slight stubble along his jaw that made me want to reach out and touch. The air between us crackled with tension so thick I could barely breathe. "Daddy, are you helping Miss Aria with work again?" Lucas's innocent voice broke the moment. Elijah straightened quickly, but I caught the flush across his cheekbones. "Just offering a different perspective, son." "You're good at that," Lucas said matter-of-factly. "Daddy sees things other people miss. It's his superpower." Superpower. If only Lucas knew how right he was, and how dangerous that superpower was becoming to my carefully guarded heart. That afternoon, we attended Lucas's school conference together. Walking into the pristine halls of the exclusive private academy, I felt Elijah tense beside me. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. "Fine. Just, these places can be intimidating." I understood immediately. As successful as I was, I still felt like an outsider in spaces designed for old money and inherited privilege. But together, we looked like we belonged, successful parents advocating for their child. Their child, The thought sent warmth through my chest. Mr. Cross, Ms. Thompson, Lucas's teacher, Mrs. Henderson, greeted us with professional politeness. Thank you for coming. We sat in tiny chairs designed for children, our knees almost touching. I caught Elijah's amused smile and had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Lucas is exceptional, Mrs. Henderson began. His reading comprehension is well above grade level and his mathematical reasoning is remarkable. However, my protective instincts flared. However, what? He's very withdrawn socially. He prefers to work alone and rarely participates in group activities. The other children find him different. Different how? Elijah's voice carried a warning edge. Mrs. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. Well, he processes information differently than his peers. He needs more time to respond to questions, and social cues seem to confuse him sometimes. My heart broke for this beautiful, brilliant child who faced the same different label I'd carried my entire life. Lucas is autistic, Elijah said quietly. High functioning, but it affects how he relates to the world. I see. Mrs. Henderson's expression grew sympathetic but somehow more distant. Perhaps a school with more specialized resources might be better suited to his needs. Heat flashed through me. Are you suggesting Lucas doesn't belong here? Not at all, Ms. Thompson, but because I seem to remember this school's mission statement emphasizing diversity and inclusion. My voice took on the steel that had conquered boardrooms. Lucas's academic performance exceeds expectations, and his behavior is exemplary. What exactly is the problem? Elijah's hand found mine under the table, warm fingers intertwining with my own. The gesture sent electricity up my arm, but more than that, it felt like partnership, like we were united in protecting this precious child. There's no problem, Mrs. Henderson said quickly. Lucas is welcome here, of course. Good, I said smoothly, because Lucas belongs wherever he chooses to be. Different doesn't mean less than. It means unique, special, valuable. As we walked back to the car, Elijah was unusually quiet. You didn't have to do that, he said finally. Yes, I did. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Lucas is brilliant and kind and perfect exactly as he is. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve him. Something shifted in Elijah's expression. His eyes grew warm, intense, searching my face like he was seeing me for the first time. Aria, he said softly, and my name on his lips sounded like a prayer. Yes? He stepped closer, his hand rising to cup my cheek. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone cold, ruthless. But you're not, are you? Under all that armor, you're soft, caring. You see Lucas, really see him, and you protect what you care about like a lioness. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I leaned into the touch, despite every instinct screaming at me to run. Elijah, I whispered. I know this is complicated, he said, stepping even closer. I know there are rules, boundaries, but I can't stop thinking about you, about this, about what we could be. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was everything I'd sworn never to want again. Trust, vulnerability, love. But looking into his eyes, feeling the gentleness in his touch, I wanted to believe, wanted to try. What about Lucas? I asked. What about Daddy? Miss Aria? Lucas came running from the playground, his backpack bouncing. Can we get ice cream, please? The moment shattered, but the feeling lingered. As we walked to the ice cream shop, Lucas between us, chattering about his day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 5 years. I felt like part of a family. That evening, after Lucas was asleep, Elijah and I sat on my terrace overlooking the city. The late autumn air was crisp and I'd wrapped myself in a cashmere throw. Tell me about Lucas's mother, I said softly. Elijah was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with old pain. Sarah died 2 years ago. Cancer. She fought for 18 months, but He swallowed hard. Lucas was 4 when she got sick. He doesn't remember her healthy. My chest ached for this man who'd lost the love of his life, for the little boy who'd grown up with loss as his normal. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "That must have been devastating." It was, but Sarah made me promise something before she died. She made me promise not to let grief make me forget how to love. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. "Is that what you're doing?" I asked. "Learning to love again?" He turned to look at me, moonlight casting shadows across his face. "Maybe. Are you?" The question terrified me. Love meant vulnerability. Love meant giving someone the power to destroy you. But as I looked at this man who'd quietly slipped past every defense I'd built, I realized it might be too late for fear. "I don't know how," I admitted. "I've forgotten how to trust." "Then we'll figure it out together." He reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. "If you want to." I studied our joined hands, his dark against my lighter brown, his strength cradling my vulnerability. "What if I hurt you? What if I can't be what you need?" "What if you can?" he countered. "What if we both can?" Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work." But something in his expression made my stomach clench. "I might need to travel next week. Handle some business." "Of course. Lucas and I will be fine." But as we said goodnight and I watched him disappear into the guest wing with his son, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were things he wasn't telling me. Secrets hiding behind those warm brown eyes. I told myself it didn't matter. Everyone had secrets, but in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered warnings about the last time I'd trusted a man with beautiful eyes and perfect words. The last time I'd believed someone when they said they wouldn't hurt me. What secrets from your past still whisper warnings in your head? How do you know when it's time to trust your heart over your fears? Share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing your stories of love and healing. Chapter 3. The Midpoint Crisis. The business trip to Los Angeles changed everything. We stayed at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and for 3 magical days, we played house in a sprawling suite overlooking the palm trees. Lucas splashed in the pool while Elijah and I worked on the Peterson presentation. In the evenings, we explored the city like a real family. Dinner at kid-friendly restaurants, walks on the beach, Lucas falling asleep between us during a movie. It felt so right it scared me. "The Peterson meeting is tomorrow," I said, reviewing my notes one final time. We sat on the suite's balcony, Los Angeles glittering below us. Lucas was asleep in the adjoining room. "You're ready," Elijah said confidently. "Your presentation is flawless, and the relationship-building approach will seal the deal." "How are you so sure? You seem to know business strategy as well as any MBA." Something flickered across his face. "I pick things up quickly." But it was more than that. Over the past month, I'd noticed how he anticipated market trends, understood complex financial structures, and had insights that went far beyond basic intelligence. Sometimes I caught him making phone calls in hushed tones, stepping away when I entered the room. "Elijah," I said carefully, "what did you do before teaching?" "Different things. Nothing as exciting as building a cosmetics empire." His smile was charming, deflecting, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Before I could press further, he stood and moved to the balcony railing. The moonlight caught the planes of his face, the strong line of his jaw, and my pulse quickened. "Come here," he said softly. I joined him at the railing, hyper-aware of his closeness. The night air carried the scent of jasmine and possibility. "Aria," he said, turning to face me. "These past few weeks, I know this wasn't part of the job description." "What wasn't?" "This." His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. "Caring about you. Wanting you. Falling for you so hard I can barely think straight." My breath caught. "Elijah, I know you're scared. I know someone hurt you badly before. But I'm not him." His voice was fierce, urgent. I would never hurt you, never betray you. The words I dreaded and craved in equal measure. You don't know what you're saying. I'm not easy to love. I'm difficult, demanding, controlling. You're brilliant, he interrupted. You're strong and successful and beautiful, but that's not why I'm falling for you. Then why? Because you put cartoon magnets on your refrigerator for a 6-year-old boy you barely knew. Because you fought for Lucas at that school conference like he was your own child. Because under all that armor, you have the biggest heart I've ever seen. Tears burned my eyes. I can't lose someone else I care about. I can't survive that again. You won't lose me. His forehead touched mine, his breath warm against my lips. I promise. And then he kissed me. Soft at first, tentative, giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't want to pull away. I wanted to fall into this feeling, this rightness, this perfect moment where everything else disappeared. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He groaned against my mouth, and the sound sent fire through my veins. His arms wrapped around me, strong and sure, like he'd never let me go. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Stay with me tonight, I whispered. Aria, just stay. Hold me. Let me pretend this is real. It is real, he said fiercely. This is the most real thing in my life. We moved to the bedroom, and with infinite tenderness, he made love to me like I was precious, like I was cherished, like I was everything he'd ever wanted. Afterward, lying in his arms with moonlight painting silver patterns on the walls, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Elijah? I think I'm falling in love with you. His arms tightened around me. I think I fell in love with you the moment you defended Lucas to his teacher. What happens when we go back to New York? We figure it out. Together. But even as I drifted off to sleep in his arms, a small voice in my head whispered that things this perfect never lasted. That happiness this pure always came with a price. I should have listened to that voice. The next morning, the Peterson meeting was a complete success. My presentation was flawless, and by lunch, we'd signed a $50 million partnership deal. Congratulations, Elijah said as we left the conference room. His smile was proud, warm, everything I'd dreamed of sharing success with someone who understood. We did it, I corrected. Your insights made this possible. Something crossed his face again, that flicker of guilt or uncertainty I'd been seeing more often. Daddy, Miss Aria. Lucas came running across the hotel lobby where he'd been waiting with a babysitter. Did you win the big meeting? We won, I said, scooping him up and spinning him around. His delighted laughter filled the space, and I caught Elijah watching us with an expression so tender. It made my chest tight. This was what I wanted. This family, this love, this life. That evening we celebrated at a rooftop restaurant. Lucas was charming the waitstaff, and Elijah couldn't stop touching me. Subtle caresses, his hand on my back, fingers brushing mine across the table. I have an idea, I said as we shared dessert. What if we made this permanent? Elijah's fork paused halfway to his mouth. What do you mean? The job. This arrangement. What if... I took a breath, gathering courage. What if you and Lucas moved in with me? Really moved in. Not as my employee, but as my family. Lucas looked up from his ice cream, eyes bright with hope. Would that mean you'd be my mom? The innocent question hit me like a physical blow, in the best possible way. Would you want that? I asked him. More than anything. He launched himself at me, small arms wrapping around my neck. I love you, Miss Aria. You make Daddy happy, and you make the best pancakes. Over his head, I met Elijah's eyes. They were bright with unshed tears, and something that looked like panic. Elijah? I said softly. What do you think? He swallowed hard. Aria, there are things you don't know. Things I need to tell you. Fear crept up my spine. What things? His phone rang, cutting through the moment. He glanced at it and went pale. I have to take this, he said, standing quickly. Excuse me. He walked away and I watched him through the restaurant's windows, pacing and talking urgently. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his body, the way his free hand raked through his hair. Is Daddy okay? Lucas asked, following my gaze. I'm sure he's fine, sweetheart. But my stomach was churning with familiar dread. When Elijah returned, his face was carefully blank. Professional. Everything all right? I asked. Fine, just work stuff. But he wouldn't meet my eyes, and when I reached for his hand, he pulled away. The rest of the evening felt strained. Elijah was distant, distracted, and every attempt I made to recapture our earlier intimacy met with polite deflection. That night, he didn't come to my room. The next morning, we flew back to New York in tense silence. Lucas sensed the shift in mood and stayed close to me, his small hand finding mine whenever turbulence shook the plane. Back at my penthouse, Elijah immediately retreated to his room with another mysterious phone call. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying the evening, his panic when I mentioned making things permanent, the phone call that changed everything. By evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. Lucas is asleep, I said, appearing in his doorway. We need to talk. Elijah looked up from his laptop, and I saw exhaustion in every line of his face. Aria, what aren't you telling me? I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. And don't say it's nothing. After last night, after what we shared, I deserve the truth. He closed the laptop and stood, running his hands through his hair. You're right. You do deserve the truth. Then tell me. I'm not who you think I am. The words hit like a physical blow. My chest tightened, familiar panic rising. What does that mean? I'm not just a teacher, Aria. I never was. Then what are you? He met my eyes, and I saw pain there, regret, and something that looked like goodbye. I'm FBI. The world tilted. What? I'm an undercover federal agent. I was assigned to investigate Thompson Cosmetics for money laundering. Each word was a knife to my heart. You're investigating me? Initially, yes. But Aria, you have to understand. You lied to me. My voice was barely a whisper. Everything. Your job, your background, your reasons for being here, all lies. Not everything. Not my feelings for you. Not Lucas. Don't. I held up a hand, stepping back. Don't you dare bring Lucas into this. That beautiful little boy who calls me his mom. Did you use him too? Was he part of your cover? Of course not. Lucas doesn't know anything about my real job. But you used him. Used his autism, his need for stability to get close to me. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating that I could barely breathe. You let me fall in love with both of you, knowing it was all a lie. It's not a lie. He stepped toward me, desperate. My feelings for you are real. What we have is real. What we have is a federal investigation. I was shaking now, rage and heartbreak warring in my chest. How long? How long have you been building a case against me? 3 months, but Aria, I know you're innocent. The money laundering, it's not you. Someone else in your company. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Take Lucas and go right now before I call security. Aria, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you had seduced me as part of your job. How you let me open my heart to your son while you were planning to destroy me. Tears streamed down my face, but my voice stayed steady. I told you about David. I told you what betrayal did to me, and you did it anyway. This is different. No, it's worse, because this time I didn't just lose the man I loved. I lost the child I thought could be mine. That broke him. His face crumpled, and I saw my own pain reflected in his eyes. I love you, he whispered. That was never part of the job. That was real. Love? I laughed bitterly. You don't even know what love is. Love is trust. Love is honesty. Love is protecting the person you care about, not gathering evidence against them. I am protecting you. I'm trying to find the real criminal by destroying my life, my company, my reputation. I walked to the door, holding it open. You have 1 hour to pack and leave. If you're not gone by then, I'll have security escort you out. Aria, 1 hour. He stood there for a long moment, looking like he wanted to fight. Finally, his shoulders sagged. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm sorry, and I meant every word I said to you, every promise, every declaration of love. If that were true, I said, meeting his eyes one last time, you never would have lied to me in the first place. After he left, I stood in my empty penthouse, surrounded by the remnants of the family I'd thought I'd found. Lucas's drawing still decorated my refrigerator. His favorite mug sat in the sink. Elijah's coffee maker sat on my counter, a reminder of mornings filled with hope and possibility. I walked through the rooms, touching things they'd left behind, feeling pieces of my heart break with each memory. The guest room still smelled like Elijah's cologne. Lucas's stuffed elephant sat on the bed, forgotten in their hurried departure. I picked up the elephant and held it close, finally letting myself cry for everything I'd lost. Again. The little boy who'd called me mom. The man who'd made me believe in love. The family that had never been real. As dawn broke over Manhattan, painting my walls in shades of gold and pink, I made another vow. The same one I'd made 5 years ago, only this time it hurt worse because now I knew exactly what I was giving up. Never again would I let anyone close enough to destroy me. But even as I made that promise, I could hear Lucas's laughter echoing through my empty rooms, feel Elijah's gentle hands on my face, remember what it felt like to be loved completely. And I wondered if some hearts were meant to break over and over, like waves against stone, until there was nothing left but scattered pieces and salt tears. Chapter 4. The Dark Moment. 2 weeks later, my world exploded. I was in a board meeting when the FBI agents arrived. 12 of them, with badges and warrants and expressions that meant business. They walked into my boardroom like they owned it, disrupting the quarterly review with the efficiency of a military operation. Aria Thompson, you're under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The words echoed strangely in my ears. Around the conference table, my board members stared in shock. Some looked surprised. Others, like my CFO Martin Webb, looked relieved that the charade was finally over. This is a mistake, I said, standing slowly. My voice was calm despite the chaos erupting around me. I demand to see the evidence. You'll have plenty of time to review evidence with your lawyer, the lead agent said, approaching with handcuffs. Ma'am, please turn around. The cold metal clicked around my wrists, and I thought of another pair of hands that had touched them so differently. Elijah's hands, gentle and reverent, worshipping every inch of my skin like I was something precious. Stop. I couldn't think about him now. Miss Thompson, Jennifer appeared at my side, her face pale with shock. I've already called your lawyers. They'll meet you at the station. As they led me through the lobby of my own building, past employees who whispered and pointed, I held my head high. The same elevator that had carried me to triumph hundreds of times now carried me to my destruction. Outside, a crowd of reporters surged forward like sharks scenting blood. Miss Thompson, did you know about the money laundering? How long has this been going on? Is it true you used your company to fund terrorist organizations? Terrorist organizations. My steps faltered. Whatever evidence they had against me was more serious than simple tax evasion. As they put me in the back of the federal vehicle, I caught sight of a familiar figure across the street. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face I'd memorized in dreams and nightmares. Elijah. He was watching from the shadows, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met through the car window, I saw pain there. regret, maybe even love. But it was too late for any of that now. The interrogation room was everything I'd seen in movies. Stark white walls, metal table, two-way mirror that made me feel like an animal in a zoo. They'd taken my jewelry, my belt, my dignity. I sat in an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent and other people's desperation. Mrs. Thompson, Agent Sarah Mills sat across from me, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. We've been investigating your company for 8 months. We have financial records, wire transfers, coded communications. This isn't going away. I don't know what you think you've found, but I've never laundered money in my life. Really? Then explain these transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. $3 million moved in increments designed to avoid federal reporting requirements. She slid photos across the table. Bank statements with my signature. Wire transfer authorizations bearing my name. Email communications that looked like they came from my account. My blood turned to ice. I didn't send these. Your signature is on every document. Then someone forged it. Agent Mills exchanged a look with her partner. Mrs. Thompson, we have 8 months of evidence. Phone recordings, financial documents, testimony from witnesses inside your organization. Witnesses? Who? I'm not at liberty to reveal that information yet. But I knew. Martin Webb, my CFO of 3 years. The man I'd trusted with my company's finances. The man who'd had access to my accounts, my signature, my passwords. I want to make a deal, Agent Mills said, leaning forward. Full cooperation. Names, dates, methods. Help us understand the scope of this operation, and we can work something out. I can't give you information I don't have. I'm innocent. Mrs. Thompson, we know about your connection to Dmitry Volkov. The name hit like a physical blow. Dmitry Volkov, Russian oligarch, suspected arms dealer, on the FBI's most wanted list for the past 5 years. I don't know anyone by that name. Really? Because we have records of you meeting with him in Monaco last year. They slid another photo across the table. Me, shaking hands with a tall, silver-haired man at a charity gala. I remembered the event, a fundraiser for children's literacy. I'd met dozens of people that night. That was a charity event. I met hundreds of people. And afterward, Volkov's organization moved $5 million through accounts linked to Thompson Cosmetics. My head spun. That's impossible. Is it? Or did you think you were too smart to get caught? Hours passed. Question after question, accusation after accusation. They had evidence I couldn't explain, connections I didn't understand. A case so airtight I began to doubt my own innocence. Finally, my lawyer arrived. Patricia Owens, the best criminal defense attorney in New York, swept into the interrogation room like an avenging angel in a $1,000 suit. This interview is over, she announced. My client isn't saying another word without a proper review of evidence. As they led me to a holding cell, Patricia walked beside me. How bad is it? I asked quietly. Bad. They have 8 months of financial records, communications, witness testimony. Aria, who has access to your accounts. My CFO, Martin Webb. My assistant, Jennifer. The accounting department heads. I paused. And recently, my household manager had access to personal accounts for expenses. Household manager? My throat closed. Elijah Cross. Patricia made a note. We'll need to investigate everyone with access. In the meantime, bail hearing is tomorrow. I'll do everything I can, but given the charges, I'm not going home tonight. Probably not. The holding cell was a concrete box with a metal bench and a toilet that had seen better decades. I sat on the bench, still wearing the orange jumpsuit, and tried to process what was happening. Someone had used my company to launder money for criminals. Someone had forged my signature, used my accounts, destroyed everything I'd built. But who? Martin had access, but he'd been with the company for 3 years without any issues. Jennifer was loyal to a fault. The accounting heads were all vetted and bonded. That left, no. I pushed the thought away. Elijah might be a liar and a federal agent, but he wasn't a criminal. He loved Lucas too much to risk prison. He'd been investigating the money laundering, not participating in it. Hadn't he? A memory surfaced. Elijah making phone calls in hushed tones, stepping away when I entered rooms. His knowledge of business strategy that went beyond any teaching background. The way he'd paled when I suggested making our arrangement permanent. Had he been reporting our conversations to his handlers? Had he used our intimacy to gather evidence against me? The bail hearing was a nightmare. The prosecutor painted me as a flight risk with international connections and unlimited resources. They mentioned Dmitry Volkov, terrorist financing, threats to national security. The judge set bail at $50 million. I paid it, liquidating investments and freezing accounts, watching my empire crumble in real time. By the time I walked out of jail, my stock price had plummeted 60%. Board members were calling for emergency meetings. Clients were canceling contracts. Everything I'd built was disappearing like smoke. My penthouse felt like a mausoleum. The FBI had searched it thoroughly, leaving drawers askew and cushions unzipped. Lucas's drawings were still on the refrigerator, but everything else felt contaminated by their presence. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my terrace, looking out at the city that had once been my kingdom. News helicopters circled like vultures, and I could see photographers with telephoto lenses positioned on surrounding buildings. My phone rang constantly, reporters, former friends, business associates wanting to distance themselves from the scandal. I turned it off and sat in silence, watching the sun set over Manhattan. A soft knock at my door interrupted the quiet. I ignored it at first, assuming it was another reporter, but the knocking persisted, gentle but insistent. Through the peephole, I saw him. Elijah stood in my hallway wearing jeans and a black sweater, looking tired and older than when I'd last seen him. Lucas wasn't with him. I should have walked away, should have called security, should have done anything except open that door. But I needed to know, needed to understand how everything had gone so wrong. "Hello, Aria." His voice was softer than I remembered, rough around the edges like he hadn't been sleeping. "Agent Cross," I said coolly, "come to arrest me again? I'm not here in an official capacity." "Then why are you here?" He stepped closer and I caught his familiar scent. My treacherous body responded despite everything, my pulse quickening. "Because I couldn't stay away, because I needed to see you, to make sure you're okay." "Okay?" I laughed bitterly. "I'm facing life in prison for crimes I didn't commit. My company is in ruins. My reputation is destroyed. But sure, I'm fantastic." "Aria, I know you didn't do this." "How generous of you to believe in my innocence. Pity you didn't believe in it before you built a federal case against me." "I wasn't building a case against you. I was building a case against whoever was using your company to launder money." Semantics. Truth. He stepped closer and I saw desperation in his eyes. "I've been working around the clock to prove your innocence. The real criminal is still out there, and I'm going to find them." "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because I love you." The words hung between us like a bridge I was afraid to cross. "Because I've been in love with you since the day you defended Lucas at that school conference. Because losing you is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I've lost a wife to cancer." The admission hit like a physical blow. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. "Where's Lucas?" I asked instead. "With my sister in Philadelphia. He doesn't understand why we had to leave so suddenly. He keeps asking for you." My heart clenched. "Don't. He drew you a picture of our family. He wants to give it to you when we come home. This isn't your home. It never was." "Wasn't it?" He took another step closer and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Those weeks we spent together, the three of us, that wasn't home. That was a lie. The only lie was my job. Everything else was real. Every laugh, every kiss, every moment of falling deeper in love with you. I wanted to hit him, wanted to scream at him for making me hope again. Instead, I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces together. It doesn't matter anymore. Even if you prove my innocence, even if you catch the real criminal, too much has been broken. Nothing's broken that can't be fixed. You don't understand. I turned away from him, looking out at the city lights. I let you in. I let Lucas in. I let myself believe in family again, in love again, and it destroyed me. I won't let it destroy you. I'm going to fix this. You can't fix this. You can't fix me. Strong hands settled on my shoulders, turning me around. Elijah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You're not broken, Aria. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. You've survived everything life has thrown at you, and you'll survive this too. I can't do it again. I can't lose someone else I love. You won't lose me. I promise. You already promised me that once. In Los Angeles, remember? You said I wouldn't lose you, that you'd never hurt me. His face crumpled. I know. I know I broke your trust, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it back if you'll let me. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't risk it again. What if I prove your innocence? What if I find the real criminal and clear your name? Then I'll be grateful. But it won't change what happened between us. Aria, you should go. If the photographers see you here, it'll just make things worse for both of us. He stared at me for a long moment, memorizing my face like he was storing it away for lonely nights. I'm not giving up, he said finally. On clearing your name or on us. There is no us. There will be. When this is over, when you've had time to heal, I'll come back. I'll keep coming back until you remember what we had. After he left, I slid down the door and sat on my marble floor, finally letting myself cry. For the love I'd found and lost. For the little boy who'd called me mom. For the family that might have been. Outside my windows, the city glittered with a million lights, each one representing lives being lived, love being shared, happiness being found. But inside my penthouse, there was only darkness and the echo of promises broken. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine a future where I wasn't alone, where trust wasn't a luxury I couldn't afford, where love didn't always end in betrayal. But all I could see was the long, cold road ahead, stretching endlessly into solitude. The phone rang again, jarring me from my despair. This time it was Patricia. Aria, we have a problem. The prosecution just filed additional charges. They're alleging that you used Thompson Cosmetics to fund terrorist activities in 3 countries. The words didn't seem real. That's impossible. I know, but they have new evidence. Wire transfers, communications, meetings you allegedly had with known terrorist operatives. Patricia, I've never even jaywalked. How can they think I'm funding terrorists? Someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to frame you. This isn't just money laundering anymore, this is national security. If convicted, you're looking at life without parole. Life without parole. The words echoed in my mind as I hung up the phone. Someone had systematically destroyed my life, used my company for criminal purposes, and now wanted to ensure I never saw freedom again. But who? And why? As I sat in my empty penthouse surrounded by the ruins of everything I'd built, one thing became crystal clear. If I was going to survive this, I needed to find the truth. Not just for my freedom, but for justice. Someone had destroyed countless lives through my company, and they were going to pay. Even if it meant trusting the one man who'd already broken my heart. Even if it meant risking everything I had left. The war for my life was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Resolution. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. I was reviewing financial documents for the 100th time when Lucas appeared at my penthouse door, clutching a drawing and wearing the most serious expression I'd ever seen on his 6-year-old face. Miss Aria, I have something important to tell you. Elijah stood behind him, looking haggard but determined. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfect appearance was rumpled with exhaustion. Lucas insisted on coming, he explained. He says he has information about your case. Sweetheart, you shouldn't be here, I said, kneeling to Lucas's level. Seeing him again was like sunlight after weeks of darkness. It's not safe with all the reporters. But I know something. Lucas's voice carried the urgency only children possess when they've discovered something important. About the mean man who hurt you. My blood chilled. What mean man, baby? Mr. Webb. I saw him doing bad things on your computer. Martin Webb. My CFO. When did you see this, Lucas? Elijah asked gently. The night before we went to the pretty city with palm trees. Remember, Daddy? You were making phone calls and I got thirsty. I went to get water and I saw Mr. Webb in Miss Aria's office. I exchanged glances with Elijah. Lucas, what was Mr. Webb doing? He was typing on your computer and talking on the phone in a different voice. Like when I pretend to be a robot. Lucas demonstrated, making his voice artificially deep. He said, the transfer is complete, and she'll never know. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. Martin had been in my office the night before our Los Angeles trip, using my computer while I was packing, and Elijah was handling his mysterious calls. There's more, Elijah said quietly. Lucas, tell Miss Aria about the papers. Mr. Webb had papers with your name on them, but it wasn't your handwriting. I know because you write different than Mommy Sarah did, but the same kind of pretty. His papers had ugly writing trying to look like yours. Forgery. Martin had been in my office forging documents, making transfers, building a case against me while I was falling in love in Los Angeles. Why didn't you tell me this before, sweetheart? I asked. Lucas's face fell. I forgot until yesterday when Daddy was talking about bad people using computers. Then I remembered, and I knew I had to tell you because you're sad, and I don't want you to be sad anymore. Tears burned my eyes. This precious little boy had been carrying information that could save my life, and he'd brought it to me because he didn't want me to be sad. Lucas, you are the smartest, bravest boy in the whole world, I said, pulling him into my arms. Thank you for remembering. Does this mean you're not in trouble anymore? It means we have a chance to prove I didn't do the bad things. Good. Because I miss you. Daddy misses you too, even though he tries to hide it by working all the time. Over Lucas's head, I met Elijah's eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. You've been investigating, I said. Around the clock. Martin Webb isn't just your CFO. He's been working with Dmitry Volkov for years. Webb's been using Thompson Cosmetics as a front, moving money for arms deals, drug trafficking, terrorist funding. How long? Since before I started the investigation. Webb recruited you specifically because you were successful, respected, and unlikely to be suspected. He's been systematically destroying other business owners the same way. The betrayal was stunning in its scope. Martin hadn't just stolen from me. He'd planned my destruction from the moment I hired him. Do you have proof? Lucas's testimony, combined with what I've uncovered, should be enough to get a warrant for Webb's personal accounts and communications. Elijah's expression was fierce. But we need to move fast. Webb knows the net is closing. Where is he now? That's the problem. He disappeared yesterday, cleaned out his accounts, abandoned his apartment. He's running. My phone rang. Patricia's name appeared on the screen. Aria, where are you? The FBI wants to meet. They say they have new evidence in your case. What kind of evidence? They wouldn't say, but they want you at the field office in 2 hours. And Aria? They said to bring Agent Cross. I hung up and looked at Elijah. They want both of us. Then we go together. What about Lucas? I'll call my sister. No. The word came out more forcefully than I intended. He stays with me. Whatever happens, Lucas stays with me. Something shifted in Elijah's expression. Hope, maybe, or relief. Are you sure? I'm sure. 2 hours later, we sat in FBI headquarters while Agent Mills reviewed Lucas's statement. The little boy was incredibly brave, answering questions with the precision of someone much older. Mr. Webb was definitely using voice disguise software, Lucas explained. Like in the movies when bad guys try to sound different. And you're certain the handwriting on the documents didn't match Miss Thompson's usual writing? Agent Mills asked. Positive. Miss Aria writes like a princess. Mr. Webb writes like a chicken. Despite everything, I smiled. Only Lucas could describe forgery in terms of princesses and chickens. Agent Cross, Agent Mills turned to Elijah. What additional evidence have you uncovered? Elijah opened his laptop and pulled up financial records. Webb has been operating a sophisticated money laundering scheme using Thompson Cosmetics as a front. He's done this before 3 other companies in the past 5 years, all with similar patterns. Other companies? Henderson Manufacturing in Detroit, Coastal Imports in Miami, and Bridgewater Tech in Seattle. All successful businesses run by entrepreneurs who ended up facing federal charges while Webb disappeared with millions. My blood ran cold. What happened to those business owners? Elijah's jaw tightened. Michael Henderson committed suicide in prison. Elena Coastal died of a heart attack during trial. David Bridgewater is serving life without parole. 3 innocent people destroyed by Martin Webb's scheme. 3 lives ruined while he profited from their destruction. We have Webb's communications with Volkov, Elijah continued. Bank records showing payments to his personal accounts, and evidence that he's been planning to frame Miss Thompson from the day he was hired. Agent Mills reviewed the documents, her expression growing grimmer with each page. This is substantial evidence, she said finally, but we still need to locate Webb to make our case complete. Actually, a new voice interrupted, that won't be necessary. We turned to see Agent Rivera, Mills's supervisor, entering the conference room with a satisfied expression. We picked up Martin Webb an hour ago at JFK Airport, trying to board a flight to Moscow with a fake passport and $5 million in cryptocurrency. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. You caught him? We caught him. And Agent Cross, your work on this case has been exemplary. The financial forensics you uncovered will put Webb away for life. What about my charges? I asked. Dropped, all of them. You're completely exonerated. The words didn't seem real. After weeks of living in a nightmare, facing life in prison, watching my empire crumble, it was over. Miss Aria, Lucas launched himself at me, wrapping his arms around my waist. You're not in trouble anymore. No, sweetheart, I'm not in trouble anymore. But even as relief washed over me, I realized the hardest part was still ahead. My company was in ruins. My reputation was shattered. The board had already started replacement proceedings. Most importantly, there was still the matter of Elijah. That evening we returned to my penthouse. Lucas was exhausted from the long day and fell asleep on my couch, surrounded by his drawings. I covered him with a cashmere throw and turned to find Elijah watching us with an expression of such tenderness it made my chest ache. He missed you, Elijah said quietly. I missed him too. Both of you. We stood in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us like a bridge neither of us knew how to cross. I should go, he said finally. Let you get some rest. Elijah, wait. He turned back, hope flickering in his eyes. Thank you for believing in my innocence, for working to clear my name, for bringing Lucas to tell me what he saw. You don't need to thank me. I love you. That means fighting for you, protecting you, believing in you even when you can't believe in yourself. I know. And I need you to know something too. I stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. I never stopped loving you. Even when I was furious, even when I felt betrayed, I never stopped loving you. His breath caught. Aria. But love isn't enough. Trust is everything. And I don't know how to trust you again. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I understand. Do you? Because I want to try. I want to find a way back to what we had, but I don't know how. We take it slow, he said softly. One day at a time, one conversation at a time, until you feel safe with me again. What about your job? The FBI? I resigned yesterday. I stared at him in shock. You what? I resigned from the bureau. I can't be an agent and be with you. There will always be conflicts, always be secrets I can't share. If I'm going to love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely honestly with no barriers between us, then I can't be FBI. Elijah, you can't give up your career for me. I'm not giving it up for you, I'm choosing what matters most. He cupped my face in his hands, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. You and Lucas matter most. Building a life together, a real family, that matters most. What will you do? I have an offer to head corporate security for a Fortune 500 company. Good pay, no undercover work, no lying to the people I love. And if we can't make this work, if I can't learn to trust again, then I'll still love you from whatever distance you need, and I'll still be grateful for the time we had. Looking into his eyes, seeing the absolute sincerity there, I felt the first crack in the walls I'd rebuilt around my heart. Lucas wants us to be a family, I said. I want that too, more than anything. I'm scared. I know I'm scared too. But Aria, what we have is worth the risk. What we could build together is worth fighting for. I thought about Lucas's drawings on my refrigerator, about the sound of laughter filling my empty penthouse, about what it felt like to be loved completely and love completely in return. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Let's try. Let's see if we can find our way back to each other. His smile was radiant, transforming his entire face. Really? Really, but slowly and honestly. No more secrets, no more lies. No more secrets, he promised. I love you, Aria Thompson. I love you too, Elijah Cross. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, we both turned to look at Lucas, still sleeping peacefully on the couch. He's going to be so happy, Elijah said. We all are. It might take time, but we're going to be happy. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room of Thompson Cosmetics, addressing my board of directors. The company had survived the scandal, stronger than ever. Our stock price had recovered. Client relationships had been rebuilt. The board that had once questioned my leadership now hung on my every word. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, I'm pleased to introduce our new head of corporate security, Elijah Cross. Elijah stood beside me, handsome in his tailored suit, radiating the quiet confidence that had first drawn me to him. But now I knew the man beneath the surface, his gentle hands with Lucas, his fierce protection of those he loved, his absolute integrity. Mr. Cross brings extensive experience in financial crimes investigation and corporate fraud prevention, I continued. He'll be working closely with all departments to ensure Thompson Cosmetics maintains the highest standards of ethical business practices. After the meeting, we walked hand in hand to the elevator that would take us to my office. On the walls hung Lucas's latest artwork, a drawing of our family standing in front of the Thompson Cosmetics building, all of us smiling. How does it feel? Elijah asked as we stepped into the elevator. What? Having everything you ever wanted. I looked at him. This man who'd fought for my innocence, who'd given up his career to be with me, who loved me and my broken places with infinite patience. Like coming home, I said. Good. Because Lucas is cooking dinner tonight and you know what that means. I laughed, remembering Lucas's last culinary adventure. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with ice cream and chocolate milk. He insists it's a balanced meal. The most balanced meal in the world. As the elevator carried us up to our future, I marveled at how dramatically life could change. A year ago, I'd been a woman who vowed never to love again, surrounded by success but isolated in my tower of achievements. Now I had a family, a real family, built on love and trust and second chances. The elevator dinged softly as we reached my floor, and Elijah squeezed my hand. Ready to go home? He asked. Ready. Because home wasn't my penthouse anymore. Home wasn't my office or my empire or my achievements. Home was wherever Elijah and Lucas were. Home was the sound of laughter echoing through rooms that had once been silent. Home was bedtime stories and refrigerator art and Saturday morning pancakes made by a 6-year-old boy who called me Mom. Home was love, freely given and gratefully received. Home was the family I'd never dared to dream I could have. As we walked out of Thompson Cosmetics together, hand in hand, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, moments when trust would be tested, times when love would require courage. But we would face them together, all three of us, the family that had been born from betrayal and built on forgiveness. The little girl from the projects who'd sworn never to love again had found her happily ever after, with a single dad who'd changed everything, and it was more beautiful than any fairy tale I could have imagined. Thank you so much for joining us on Aria's incredible journey from heartbreak to healing. Love really can conquer all, even our deepest fears and greatest betrayals. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are possible and that the right love is always worth the risk. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love to transform our lives. This has been Billionaire Soulful Stories, where every ending is just a new beginning.